Welcome, grimdark enjoyers. Today I want to talk about the 10th edition Space Marines Army rule, Oath of Moment. While it undeniably has become and is an army rule which is very potent as it relates to game mechanics, I find it to be rather uninspired, and actually weak thematically. But why make this video now? Well, to be frank, as we move late into an edition, I found those invested in the system are more receptive to these sorts of critical analyses. But I'm not just here to point at rules and say how bad they are. This one will be part critique, going over the guiding reasoning, followed by a suggestion for what I would prefer. And honestly, it's a pretty fun thought experiment. And so, let's begin. The problem and rework of Oath of Moment. So what is the rub? I mentioned in the opener, Oath of Moment is a very potent rule. You choose an enemy unit and your whole army gets to reroll hit rolls against that target. In an edition where rolls of 6 score critical hits, it makes those attacks which score extra hits or auto wound all the more likely. And if you're not running a special snowflake chapter, you also get +1 to wound on all those attacks against that target. And if your weapons are twin-linked, which allows you to reroll wounds, well, let's just say it's not unheard of to make attacks where you are rerolling the hit roll, rerolling the wound roll with +1 to wound. It's a lot. The ability to have such a lever to sway the weight of dice in your favor is staggeringly strong and not to be understated, especially when it's across every unit in your army. The one caveat is that all the described efficiency is only on one single target. Shifting gears over to the theme, what do the aforementioned game mechanics thematically abstract? The answer, it thematically facilitates Space Marines being able to put stuff down. Do you need to destroy a key target? Well, declare it as your oath target and you are far, far more likely to remove it from the table. But therein lies the wrinkle, dear viewers. Well, not quite a wrinkle, perhaps more like a fissure, a deep gulf of thematic dissonance. Oath of Moment in its current form is thematically dissonant. I'd say even terribly so. And upon hearing that, you might be saying, "What? You just outlined the mechanical potency and how it facilitates Space Marines being able to put stuff down. Space Marines are angels of death, so that sounds pretty on brand to me." Well, here's the why. Not only is the idea of an entire army making a unified pledge to destroy one single target narratively absurd, the earlier version of the Custodes' karate stances come to mind, but more importantly, it's counter to the power fantasy theme Space Marines ought to flex. This is because the thematic abstraction of Oath of Moment is describing all units working together against a single enemy unit. Remember, your whole army gains buffs to the attack sequence when attacking the priority target. This doesn't convey power fantasy tropes. It conveys collaboration. It's an efficiency bonus through coordination. Instead of that, consider the following. One unit should make an Oath of Moment, which should allow that unit to do something awesome. The mechanics should revolve around the unit making an oath and doing something epic in the moment, which better conveys their might, and therefore better exemplifies the notion of power fantasy. This is my position on Oath of Moment. Tell me if you agree or disagree in the comments. But moving on, I have a rule framework I'd like to share which speaks to the suggestion I outlined. Here's what I came up with. In your command phase, select one unit from your army to make an Oath of Moment. This is your Oath of Moment unit. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in your Oath of Moment unit makes an attack, you can re-roll the hit roll. The way in which you declare oaths remains the same, but now you can select one of your units to become an Oath of Moment unit instead of selecting an Oath of Moment target. As for the perk, while I despise rerolls, that is the 10th edition climate, so I figured for adaptability's sake, we'll keep it as is. Let the record show I would much prefer the Oath benefit to be a fallback shoot and charge. but I think that requires vast changes to many surrounding rules and profiles for such a benefit to sit well. In any case, right about now, this rule probably feels like a strict downgrade. I've taken a benefit that applied to the whole army, removed the +1 to wound, and restricted it to 1 unit. The silver lining is that that unit could shoot and fight different targets, leveraging the reroll to hit bonus. However, on the whole, it does feel like a pretty severe downgrade. To compensate for that lack, there is a secondary perk for your Oath of Moment unit, one which varies depending on your chapter of choice, which we will review shortly. But to preface them, here is a bit of context to these chapter oath benefits. They are intended to provide very potent benefits to that one unit which is aiming to do something awesome. They are intended to provide the first founding chapters, and their successors, a mechanical twist to the army rule that will change how they are characterized on the tabletop. This is something I consider to be a great failing in how 10th edition handles the chapters and subfactions overall. And lastly, I find them to be rather fun. So now let's go through the chapters. For the Dark Angels, their Oath of Moment causes units to increase their objective control. They are the Template Legion, the first among their peers, and are oriented in accomplishing the mission. In effect, if the Dark Angels want your objective, they are far more effective in flipping it. Additionally, they gain attack sequence benefits when damaged, speaking to their Grim Resolve. For the White Scars, their Oath of Moment allows their units to charge after advancing or falling back, and if the unit is mounted, and if it performed a charge that turn, it can fall back instead of consolidating. The White Scars Oath unit will strike like lightning, devastating their foe before shifting away, exemplifying the notion of hit-and-run warfare, while also being a potent exception. For the Space Wolves, their Oath of Moment unit doesn't gain a secondary perk for themselves. Rather, units being set up gain a 6-inch buffer instead of a 9-inch one from enemy units if they're set up near the Oath of Moment unit. And if those units are set up on your turn, they are eligible to charge. It's a potent exception, granting an easy means for deep strike charges, but not something foreign to the 10th edition landscape. For the Space Wolves, collaboration feels like a theme they are well suited to flex, and the design space available to use it offensively on your turn or defensively via rapid ingress enables Knight of the Wolf type situations, which I think is neat. For the Imperial Fists, their Oath of Moment allows them to hit on 5s with Overwatch, and if on an objective marker, they gain Fight on Death if they haven't fought in that fight phase. As it sort of follows, the Imperial Fists are defensive specialists, exemplified here by better than average Overwatch, and duty in holding the line, represented by Fight on Death. It's not especially fancy, but the tactical value is undeniably effective. For the Black Templars, their Oath of Moment allows them to gain fights first if they are fighting an enemy unit on an objective marker, and allows them to reroll charge and heroic intervention rolls. This one has thematic parallels to the Imperial Fists chapter oath bonus from earlier, but is far more aggressive in its application. For the Blood Angels, their Oath of Moment grants them the ability to countercharge at the end of the enemy charge phase, and if that unit flies, they gain fights first. It's spicy. The Red Thirst is the curse which drives the Blood Angels into combat, and I think it's fitting that curse would sway their sworn oaths. The bonus for flying units is a thematic nod to Sanguinius's angelic nature, and while jump packs are certainly a thematic pick for the Blood Angels, in a perfect world, you'd have the means to dole out fly via the old Wings of Sanguinius psychic power. For the Iron Hands, their Oath of Moment grants that unit a once per turn CP reduction on stratagems. It's the simplest of the lot, but I suspect this utility will create some great moments, where a unit swears its oath and goes on to perform a combo of actions which would be ordinarily impossible. And it's brutally efficient as it relates to CP expenditure, which to me makes it a strong thematic characterization tool for the Iron Hand's merciless logic. For the Ultramarines, their Oath of Moment chapter bonus grants the unit the ability to split into 2 smaller ones. It doesn't offer additional perks, but both units do become Oath of Moment units. It's all about tactical flexibility here. And it's a design space I wish GW used more often, if I'm being honest. For the Salamanders, their Oath of Moment grants an offensive AP bonus to your attacks when targets are on objectives, and a Feel No Pain against incoming attacks when they are on objectives. It makes the Oath unit more lethal when fighting for what's valuable, and all the hardier when defending them. They are the anvil which weathers the fires of battle. I've also included a perk to reroll attacks on torrent weapons for the Oath of Moment unit, because it's honestly stupid that Salamander's Flamers are less benefited by their Oaths of Moment than their other weapons. Such is the state of 10th edition 40k. Quite pathetic on GW's part, really. And for the Raven Guard, their Oath of Moment grants their unit the Lone Operative ability. And if they already have Lone Op, that unit gains a reactive move at the end of the enemy movement phase. It will make the Raven Guard feel very elusive and deadly, until they want to strike, working beautifully with stratagems like Rapid Ingress. And that's the lot of them. Here they are for your review. For me, this paradigm sparks quite a bit of joy, as I would posit it creates a far better characterization for the chapters on the tabletop than the current offerings of 10th edition. But beyond the preferred characterization, I think there is a mechanical richness here. I've tried to avoid just choosing mechanics which focus on skewing the attack sequence. GW is fairly obsessed with those types of rules, but broadly speaking, those sorts of mechanics are boring, and I think the game is more interesting when units aren't just obliterated off the table. Though that does get me thinking. There might be something of an incentive there in GW's rules writing preference, but I digress. If what I came up with was of interest and you desire a downloadable PDF of these reworked oaths, let me know in the comments. Well, that's it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, there are buttons for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thanks for watching, and a special thanks to Julius Maximus, as well as my other generous patrons and channel members. Channel members and patrons get early access to regular channel videos, as well as free access to various STL doodads. Just a little something for those who help keep the dream alive. Anyways, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.